to have with us today James Brooks. James is a good friend of Jeff's, who's in sales at Franklin Covey. He and his wife live in San Diego, and they have an 8-year-old daughter and a dog. And James's motto is 1% better every day. James, we're glad you could be with us today.
Hey, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking your time. James, can you tell us what got you introduced into streaking?
So obviously I work with Jeff Downs, and he had told me about a book that he wrote and told me about the concept, and he told me the story of how he came up with the idea with his wife. And he gave me a copy of the book, and I read the book, and I thought, wow, this speaks to me, especially in the sense that, I'm one of those people where I'm, always trying to improve myself in different aspects of my life, relationships, jobs, all of that stuff. And streaking is a really simple concept that really kind of makes it doable and real for you and actionable.
Thanks. So tell me, what was it from reading the book to starting your first streak? Can you tell us about that process? Was it something that happened pretty quick, or something you took some time to think about? Or
yeah, so naturally, I'm one of those people that I'm actually pretty good at developing new habits and being consistent with it, but I've never actually tracked it. So, I'll do all kinds of things and I'll create all these habits, but I never actually, kept track of it. And so all that being said, when I heard about the book and the app, I thought, oh, wow, like I should try this just to see, because it kind of naturally is part of my makeup, I guess, if you will. So I thought, okay, so I'm going to streak, so one thing is I like to draw. So I said, okay, I'm going to try, drawing at least one drawing every single day, make it real simple.
Yeah.
And then, so I did that streak for a little while. And what I found was that I do that anyway. So that wasn't really a good streak. I wasn't really pushing the envelope. So
I think that's a perfect streak though. Like that's always a good place to start, with something that you're already doing, and how cool to track it and go, oh yeah, I already do this, but I've been doing this every day for however many days. I think that's a great place to start.
Right. Yeah. So I did that, and I had a couple other streaks in between that were, something similar. But they were all things that weren't really a stretch for me. And so I had this whole, and I like to overthink things. So I had this whole process where I said, okay, I'm going to stop this for just a second. And I'm going to really, I know what it was. I was talking to Jeff one day, and I happened to see his streaks. And I saw his streaks, and I mean, they covered everything, and some really like powerful ones. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, his streak is, something really powerful, and it's a nice like family streak, and one for relationships and all this stuff. And mine is just draw a sketch, right? So I thought, okay, let me rethink this. And then finally I thought, oh, maybe the one thing I can really focus on that I've kind of done but never really been consistent at is journal every day. So then I thought, okay, so I'll do this, like, journaling every day, and we'll just write at least one sentence a day of journaling. So I bought this book and I started journaling, and I had about 2 weeks going into it, and I left my journal at a hotel.
Oh no.
And I was out of town. And so I couldn't, and I really wanted that same journal, so I couldn't get it back in time. And anyway, so then I got kind of frustrated about it. But what was interesting is that I was following this process because the journal was called the Daily Stoic. And part of the Daily Stoic, like the idea is, one of the main ideas is to accept your fate and just accept it, not fight it, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, all these like 3 days that I'm out of town on vacation, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, I can't believe I lost my journal. And I can't believe I broke my streak. And then I thought, wait a minute, have I learned nothing from this process? Because I'm supposed to accept my fate and let go.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got back, I thought, okay, let's start over again. And so now I've been journaling for about 60 some days now. And it's actually a little bit longer, but there's times when I forgot to click the app. And so now there's a reminder, so I don't do that anymore. Yeah. So kind of a long-winded story, but that's kind of the evolution of my streaking, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. I love that you talked about breaking a streak and having that be an opportunity to, oh, what am I learning from this, right? And especially with yours, with the Daily Stoic, was very specific to like, oh, I need to be learning to accept my fate. But also, like, I have a journaling streak as well, and I break it a lot. Not a lot, because if you're breaking your streak too many times, and you're like, oh, maybe something here needs to change. But,
right.
It's one that I go back to that after I break it, I go right back to it because it's exactly what I want. And I notice that even though I missed a day, like I can go back to it. It's still achieving my purpose, I guess. But yeah,
right.
That's good stuff. Tell me a little bit about it. So your story is so fascinating to me because most people come to streaking looking for a way to be more consistent and more steady about things. But you said that's something that already comes a little bit naturally to you. So tell me a little bit more about what attracted you to this idea of streaking.
Yeah, I think when Jeff told me his story about how for him, you know, creating new habits wasn't something that came natural to him.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's really cool because I know a lot of brilliant people that have great ideas and could accomplish so much, but they just lack the ability to execute.
Yeah, to make it happen.
And so I just thought, wow, that's interesting. And so I wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And then I started nerding out on it because I realized a few years ago that I listen to a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of reading. And one thing that is really fascinating to me is, and I'm going to butcher this explanation, but there's this chemical process that happens in your brain. It was from a neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman is the podcast that I listened to. And he was talking about the dopamine reward system and how, you know, when you're working toward a goal, dopamine is released in your brain. And there's another chemical that's released when you achieve your goal, but it's not as powerful as the dopamine. And I don't remember, I want to say it's serotonin, but I'm not 100% sure what the chemical is. But so anyways, and he goes on to talk about this, and he says that's why a lot of times you'll have like an athlete that's training their whole life to, you know, win a medal or whatever. And yeah, that moment is really good. But then when the moment is done, it's almost like they get depressed.
Yeah.
Because they've been riding this dopamine, you know, roller coaster, and then all of a sudden just drops off.
Yeah.
And so he in the podcast, he emphasizes that what you want to do is be focused on the path to the goal and celebrate those little victories on the way to the goal. So you can kind of just trigger this dopamine system. And so I had heard that a few years ago, and I've kind of been doing it ever since then. And so I just wake up and I have all this joy because all these little things that I do in my life are setting myself up to celebrate these small little victories. And they could be as simple as, you know, putting my vitamin next to my coffee cup every morning so I take my vitamin, right? So when I saw streaking, I thought, wow, because I can basically look at the streak every time I click it, and there's a dopamine hit I'm getting, right? So essentially I've addicted myself to my own brain hormones.
Sure.
And the streaking app illustrates that for me. So now it's like, I look at my journal, man, I've been doing this for like 60 some days. Like I want that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
So not only am I getting that, but I'm also getting the, you know, the reward that comes with actually doing the journaling, right?
Yes, yes, yes. I love that side benefit that you explained, and one that we don't often focus on in a world that's so inundated with goals, and that
Mhm.
idea of yeah, it's almost like it's a nice motivational poster, like find joy in the journey, but literally how do I literally find joy in the journey? And I love this explanation, and a scientific explanation at that, right? Of the dopamine hit of a
Mhm.
healthy addiction that comes from celebrating literally your process every single day, even if it's just one line in your journal or 1 mile or whatever it is, what
Mhm.
that does for your brain. That's great.
Thanks.
So James, you're when you tell your friends that you're streaking, what do you tell them?
Um, Great question. Let me think about that one.
Yeah, yeah. Or do you tell your friends?
I here's what I'll do usually. If I have a friend that's telling me about something they want to do. So I have a buddy that super intelligent, lots of ideas, very entrepreneurial. Uh, but he's one of those people I think that's like inundated with good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard for him to not only pick an idea, but then turn that idea into reality.
Sure.
So for somebody, when I hear somebody saying that, and I hear these little things like, oh, you know, as Tony Robbins says, you know, when you hear people say should, and they're looking for a way to turn a should into a must, that's when I tell them, because I guess it's a way to accomplish what you want inches at a time.
Yeah.
And so that's usually how I describe it. If you want to turn a should into a must and do it inches at a time, this is the way to do it. Or if you want to
Yeah.
build a habit, even better,
Sure.
simple.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. It's the how for a lot of what's for sure.
Exactly.
For almost literally all the what's, right? Like you can, yeah, I feel like that's the best part, is it's so adaptable for any situation. You can create it wherever.
Yeah.
James, let's also pretend like you have a friend who said, okay, I'm ready. I want to start streaking. What advice would you give them?
I would tell them to really think about what it is that they want to do thoughtfully,
Hmm.
because it's so easy to just say, oh, you know, like when I started, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. Um, and then you get through it and you go, you know what, this actually isn't a good streak. Like I had a streak, or one of my first streaks was to do my physical therapy exercises every day. And I started doing it. And then I realized that if I did not do those stretches, I would be in pain. So I realized that I have to do these because it hurts if I don't. So I just consistently do it now. And so I don't need to make a streak for
Sure.
it.
So you didn't need the tool. You don't need the streaking tool. Somebody might need the streaking tool for that, but
Right.
you didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, for that particular thing. So for me, the way that I look at it is to use the tool for something that you have to want to accomplish it, right? Whatever that is, but you have to tell yourself that you want to do it. And to me, it's still simple. So you want to break down. So, you know, if I want to lose weight, for example, I actually
Mhm.
had this streak for a while. If I want to lose weight, which is a pretty difficult thing to do, at least
Oh,
for
yeah.
me, um, you know, my thing was, again, start simple. And I love tortillas. So I just said, I'm not going to eat tortillas. I'm going to go, you know, 6 days a week without eating any tortillas. And I made it something really simple.
Uh-huh.
And then I made it, and then eventually it went from no tortillas to no bread to no, and I kind of scaled it up. Right. So there's all kinds of ways that you can work it. But again, it's just, to me, it's just really think about something you absolutely want to accomplish, and then break it down to its simplest piece. Because as you start building, you start realizing, hey, I can do this. You get more confidence, and then you can go, in my example anyways, from no tortillas to no bread and no tortillas, and then right. So
yeah.
hopefully that makes
Great.
sense.
Of course it does. Of course. Thanks. James, thanks for spending time with us today. Do you have any final words before we close?
Well, I think the only thing that I would say is just 1% better every day. Oh, I know. This is how I would end it. Even better. It's a quote, and I'm hoping I'm not going to butcher it, but there's a great book called The Happiness Advantage. And if I remember right, the quote is something like this, that something to the effect of the greatest amount of joy we have is the pursuit of fulfilling our potential. Something like that.
That's good.
And so to me, streaking is really about, fulfilling your potential one day at a time.
That's great. Fulfilling your potential one day at a time. Thanks so much, James.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.